Listen to me. If there was a wise man who would ever think of this, they would say in order to be superior to the man, you've got to be the man. For I am the man himself.
Ladies and gentlemen, what is going on? This is the Club of the Man 1993, and we're on episode number 36 of this WWE 24 review series, as we have this one, and of course the next one, the Damian Priest one, and that will wrap up this series for now, unless if they do decide to do more of these 24 specials, which, again, I hope they do. Most of them have been pretty good. There have been some that were kind of stinkers. Well, I wouldn't say stinkers, just some that I didn't like how they were put together and whatnot, mostly because of the topic, I would say. So, this was the last one in the series that this was the first time I've watched it. The Damian Priest one, which is next, I've already seen it once. And again, it was the one that inspired me to do this review series. This was the last one I saw for the first time. I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't the biggest fan of this one. I was kind of disappointed. I felt like it was a little long. Made me think maybe they had the right idea when they did two different ones for WrestleMania 37. I felt like they should have done one for WrestleMania 38 as well. Just saying. Because this not only felt long, there were maybe a couple stories they touched on that felt unnecessary. Particularly the Rick Boogs one. And it's nothing against Rick Boogs. It's just what happened to him that night. The way you built him up in the story you told about him in this documentary, just for him to get hurt like he did, I didn't like how they did that. And I think also the reason why I didn't like this one was probably because it's just how long it was. Was it the longest one we've done so far? No. The Miz one, I believe, was the longest at an hour and 17 minutes. We also, of course, had the one with Edge that was an hour and 15, which that one, yes, I feel like there's a couple you could have trimmed that one, but that one at least kept me interested. This one didn't. There were some times where I kind of got bored. Because I felt like some of the stories they didn't touch on as much as they should have. But again, they gave a lot of time to Rick Boogs. Just for what happened to him at Mania. And like I said, I have nothing against Rick Boogs. I do wish things would have worked out better for him in WWE. But after him suffering the knee injury he suffered in the opening match of this WrestleMania, they should have just let him be. And because you hyped him. We'll get to it in a second. But let's just roll in and talk about this documentary, WrestleMania 38. So like I said, both nights were discussed in one documentary. It wasn't split up into two like it was for WrestleMania 37. There's a couple matches they really didn't touch on. Really, actually, when I look at this one, the only match on night one they didn't really showcase anything at all was Drew McIntyre and Happy Corbin. That's the only match they didn't really show any highlights for. Most of the first part was regarding the Usos and then Rick Boogs and Shinsuke Nakamura. More so is talking about Rick Boogs, giving him a spotlight where they had Boogs showing how he grew up wanting to be an entertainer, also into powerlifting and being a big strong man and whatnot and such. All this hype on him, showing when he did briefly appear a few times in NXT under his real name, Erica Boogan. What is Rick Boogs' real first name? I want to look that up really quick. I forgot how to pronounce it. Rick Boogs. Eric Bugenhagen. Eric Bugenhagen. Okay, Eric Bugenhagen is his real name. And I do remember, actually, when he made like 1 or 2 TV appearances in NXT. And he was pretty entertaining. Like, he had a character, but they didn't really show much of him in-ring wise. And I guess Vince McMahon called him up because he had seen like an Old Spice commercial he did or something like that. And they had him team up with Shinsuke Nakamura, doing his introduction with his guitar, which was awesome. Shinsuke Nakamura! Basically is what they were saying. And they had great chemistry. This led to Nakamura taking the crown off of King Corbin, and also eventually winning the Intercontinental title off of Apollo Crews. That again was pointless because Nakamura, every time he has a mid-card title, does absolutely nothing. But they have their match at WrestleMania, which was them taking on the Usos for the SmackDown tag titles. And they show Boogs get in there and does me like 1 or 2 like power move spots. Then he tried to lift up both Usos at the same time, and his right leg gave out. And he blew out his knee, tore a couple of ligaments, and he ended up having to get the roll out of the match, and Shinsuke had to eat the 1D to get the victory. And of course, obviously, it's shown that they'll take care of him and whatnot, blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, why do they have to, like... My problem is, again, yes, I get stuff happens. But I feel like if this is how it ended, you should have cut it from the documentary. Because you hyped him up as this big, strong man, just for him to get his leg blown out. And then, of course, eventually... Okay, yes, he wasn't released at the time this documentary came out, but he eventually got released. He got released in, 23 or 24? I can't remember when it was, but I think it was like a year later. Yeah, I think it was like in September of 23, right after TKO bought the company. I think that's when he got released. I'll have to look it up. But yeah, I didn't like how they featured him in there. I think they should have just left it alone and just done some of the other stuff. It would have saved some time on the documentary. It wasn't worth putting the time in there like they did. Other matches on the show they like touched on briefly. Miz and Logan Paul versus the Mysterios. They did show, of course, the Mysterios preparing for their entrance, where both him and Dom like popped up from like underneath the stage and whatnot. Just Logan Paul getting a rub, like saying you got this, because this was Logan Paul's debut match when he tagged with the Miz. Miz and Logan Paul won. We all know after the match, Miz turned on Logan Paul, set up for a match at SummerSlam, which ended up being a very, very underrated match for sure. If you could bring a great match out of the Miz like Logan Paul did at SummerSlam, you're definitely something special inside the ring. And we all know I'm not a Logan Paul guy at all whatsoever. I think he's a great wrestler. I think he's a scumbag as a person. Ronda Rousey and Charlotte Flair got a few seconds of showing some from their match, but that was basically it. Didn't touch on anything there. The biggest surprise that I can't believe they didn't really if they didn't really focus on that they didn't focus on a lot more was Cody Rhodes' return. Cody Rhodes made his WWE return when he was the surprise opponent for Seth Rollins. They had him basically talk about Dusty afterwards, how proud he would be of him and whatnot, this and that. But they didn't give much time to do that. Like, if you really wanted this documentary to be as long as it was, like you could have... Remember back in the WrestleMania Orlando 24 when they highlighted the Hardy Bros, the Hardy Boys return? You could have done something a little bit more like they did in that one with Cody, but not as much here as they did as I thought. The other two matches, of course, they gave a lot of time to behind the scenes was Bianca Belair and Becky Lynch, and of course the main event night one is Stone Cold Steve Austin and Kevin Owens. For Bianca and Becky, it kind of more focused on Becky, with the idea of this is well, first off, I forgot to mention at the beginning, this was the first WrestleMania, like, with a full crowd since the pandemic, because WrestleMania 21 only allowed, like, 25,000 at Raymond James Stadium. But not just only that, this was also Becky Lynch's first WrestleMania back after becoming a mother. And although, yes, the angle was odd, the heel character she had wasn't organic. Like, what she's doing right now with Lyra is definitely much more organic, I feel like, for her to transition to a heel character. Even though it made sense in the end when it came full circle with her and Bianca fought again after the 26-second match at SummerSlam. This still worked out. And honestly, we've given a ton of credit to, like, Rhea and Charlotte for their match at 39. The triple threat match that just happened between Rhea, Bianca, and Io, which might be one of the best matches I've ever seen for sure by women. And, of course, Bianca and Sasha and Bayley. This match at WrestleMania 38 with Bianca and Becky was absolutely underrated. Like, this is another match. I feel like that if there was for a couple others, you would definitely call that a match of the year candidate. One of the best women's WrestleMania matches for sure as well. They also talked about Becky's special entrance as they gave her, well, for graphic wise, they gave her kind of like a comic book graphic thing. And then, of course, since they were calling her Big Time Bex at the time, she got into a car and got driven in like she was a big rock star or whatnot. And like I said, they had absolutely phenomenal chemistry. The only thing is, though, is off of a front flip, Becky accidentally hit Bianca in the face and busted her eye. So she did have an eye injury for the first couple weeks of her title reign. But that was successful. And of course, Stone Cold Steve Austin really put over Becky, which made Becky very happy, of course. As she says, balancing between being a mother and being a wrestler. And she didn't feel like she was ready to be done yet with being a wrestler. But, she wants to, bring out the best of herself in both of them. So that was a nice story there. And then, of course, the main event of night one, which was Kevin Owens and Stone Cold. Well, Kevin Owens was having the Kevin Owens show, and his special guest was the Texas Rattlesnake Stone Cold Steve Austin. Because remember, we were in Dallas, Texas, which is also special for Becky too. Because we'll get back to Becky for a second, because that was when she had her first WrestleMania match. It was at WrestleMania 32, where her, Charlotte, and Sasha stole the show. Kevin Owens had the Kevin Owens show. He did have a match, and he called out Stone Cold Steve Austin. Remember, Kevin Owens re-signed with WWE because they were giving him this moment. I do feel like had Kevin Owens not been given this opportunity, he probably wouldn't have re-signed at the beginning of 2022. Same with Sami Zayn went with him and his match for at WrestleMania 38 night 2. We'll get to that in a second. They gave, of course, that a lot of time, which definitely should have happened. But yeah, they gave them behind the scenes, and Kevin Owens talked about, we all know Kevin Owens basically focused on nothing but wrestling growing up, and Stone Cold Steve Austin was in fact his guy. Well, one of his favorites. We all know his number one favorite for sure was Owen Hart. And being able to share the ring with Stone Cold Steve Austin at WrestleMania, you never thought that was going to happen. So Austin came out. Owen said he doesn't want to talk, he wants to fight. So he challenges him to a no-holds-barred match, to which Austin accepts. And I thought they had an excellent no-holds-barred match. Austin was 57 when they had this match, and I felt like I was watching something from the Attitude Era. It was an outstanding moment there, and Kevin Owens getting this. It's a moment you won't take away from a guy who grew up as a wrestling fan. We go back to the interview with him and Sami back in 2017 for the talk when they did around Talk Is Jericho. Sami mentioned how when he's off work, he likes to detach. Kevin Owens always wants to be about wrestling. Kevin Owens is a guy that truly, I'm not saying that everybody else doesn't, but if there's someone you could say that truly loves professional wrestling, it's Kevin Owens. And him earning this opportunity, the main event, the first of two WrestleMania main events he's had, because him and Sami main evented WrestleMania Night 1, WrestleMania 39. The main event, though, with Stone Cold Steve Austin is definitely an honor for sure. And he's glad he got to have that moment. His parents were there, of course, also to celebrate it. And that was a successful Night 1. We get to night 2, which night 2 stories I thought for the most part were better. Like I said, I didn't like that again, not to saying Rick Boogs didn't deserve a spotlight. It's just that the way how it ended, it's like, you hype that like he's a big, strong man, then he botches a move, gets injured. Does that really make him look good, you know? Oh, I also forgot to mention, too, this is the first of the 224s that has a different logo, if you can tell from underneath the graphic, underneath my video screen. For night 2, they didn't really show anything for Bobby Lashley and Omos, or Sheamus and Ridge Holland taking on the New Day. Of course, we all know that was supposed to be a 6-man tag with the whole team of the newly formed Brawling Brutes, Sheamus, Ridge Holland, and Pete Dunne, or he just got called up and was known as Butch, taking on the New Day. The only reason why this is 2-on-2 is because this was right at when Big E had suffered that neck injury that's kept him out since. There still seems to be hope for him to come back, but we'll just have to wait and see. Yeah, and then like nothing else really. Well, they showed some highlights from the Triple Threat Raw Tag Title match, another very underrated match that was excellent between RK Bro, Street Profits, and Alpha Academy's Chad Gable and Otis. They showed a little bit of highlights from the women's Fatal 4-Way Tag Title match where Sasha and Naomi defeated the champions Carmella and Zelina Vega when she was Queen of the Ring. Rhea and Liv, can't believe they were a tag team at one point, it led to their feud they just had this past year. And then the random team of Natalya and Shayna Baszler. Edge and AJ Styles basically briefly said this is a match they thought that would never happen. This is also when Edge was briefly a heel again, and he was starting the Judgment Day. They didn't show, but this is the match where Damian Priest joined forces with Edge, and the pieces of the puzzle started forming together. Of course, we all know that they eventually thought Edge didn't fit the vision and pulled him out of the group, and he was back to being a face again. The other 2 matches, well, okay. The 3 matches they gave a spotlight for from night 2. The first one was Sami Zayn and Johnny Knoxville, the Jackass match. Now, we all know that I am one of those fans that can't stand these celebrity matches. But this one did work out, because this one, like, Sami Zayn mentioned the idea of taking Jackass and combining it with wrestling. Obviously, there's some things that don't work with wrestling. I feel like, though, Jackass and being a comedy match worked. Especially Sami Zayn, which, yes, I did kind of hate that they kept him a heel for so long. He was just a big loudmouth who got the crap beat out of him every single week or thrown into dumpsters, as we saw before. But I think him and Johnny Knoxville did really make that match work. The only spot of that match I remember where I was starting to lose interest was when they had Party Guy or Wee Man like basically stripped down to their underwear, which I thought that's too far. You didn't have to go that far with it. But everything else I thought was like hilarious and a masterpiece done about this. I do think it's a little BS though that they were claiming that it was supposed to be a Royal Rumble spot, but then turned into a WrestleMania match. You know for sure, especially with Johnny Knoxville already getting beef with Sami Zayn, you basically already knew for sure that this was going to be a WrestleMania match. Also, the fact that apparently Johnny Knoxville like exposed Sami Zayn's phone number and he got texts and FaceTime calls or whatnot. Like, I don't know if he got like a fake phone number for that to happen or what, but that was a little bit goofy, of course, but I still thought that Jackass match worked out really good. They also gave a ton of time to Pat McAfee, which that one, yes, that I would have done it so. Just talking about how Pat McAfee is just living a dream. He's a guy who was a once punter for the NFL for the Indianapolis Colts. Keep forgetting he's also from Pittsburgh, my hometown, and how also he's always been a huge professional wrestling fan. And Michael Cole was the one who got him connected with doing like commentary. He briefly did some stuff in NXT, and then Pat McAfee had Vince McMahon on his show, and Vince McMahon wanted to give him a chance to live his dream and have a match at WrestleMania. His opponent, Vince McMahon's protege, Austin Theory. Which is when he was, of course, still doing the selfie gimmick and whatnot. They had their match. Pat McAfee did have his special entrance with cheerleaders, which also I forgot to mention. Speaking of cheerleaders, Bianca Belair had one with the Becky Lynch match with a marching band playing her song, which I thought was very cool. But Pat McAfee had the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders. Austin Theory had the match. Vince McMahon was at ringside, and it was a really, really good match with Pat doing some really cool spots in there, including, of course, the moonsault landing on his feet. Like, again, this is a guy who isn't really a wrestler, but you can tell he's a fan. He can wrestle believably. He can talk both on the microphone and, as with a promo. With his recent build to his match tomorrow night against Gunther has been really good with that build. And him and Austin put on an excellent match. Pat got the win, but afterwards they set up something with him and Vince McMahon, which some people consider it the worst match of 2022. I felt that although Pat was a great attraction, if there was anyone who was going to get that spot filled, I understand why they chose him. And Vince basically just bullied him a little bit and then beat him by punting a football into his chest. But that led to Stone Cold Steve Austin coming out again, stunning Austin Theory. And then we had Vince McMahon scared to take the stunner. Probably the worst stunner we've seen. Either that or the one with Linda. And then, of course, Pat celebrated with Pat McAfee, which I think this... Austin celebrated with McAfee, and Patsy mentioned before in this documentary that he was a huge fan of Stone Cold Steve Austin. This was the first time he got to meet him too, so that was all cool. But of course, you had to take a stunner from Steve, and then of course even he sold it best of the three of them. When he got hit stunned, he literally kept some of the beer in him and just fountained it out like Triple H. Oh, and also too, at the beginning of night 2, this is around the time when Triple H first came back after that health scare with his heart, and he announced that he's no longer able to wrestle anymore. Before night 2 began, he did come out and set his boots down in the ring, which is a tradition when you're done wrestling, and then his entrance as well in there. Forgot to mention that. But yeah, glad Pat McAfee got to live this dream and have this WrestleMania moment. And then they touched on the main event a little bit, which was the title unification match with Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar. Not much really storyline wise. They just kind of said this is a big deal, whatnot. This is playing with some big poker chips. And yes, the roles were reversed. Yes, we were sick of Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns. Yes, I wasn't happy this was title for title. The match itself was fine. I still would say, if you put it ranking of all the matches it had, it's probably somewhere in the middle. I'd probably, they've had 7 or 8 matches. I would put this match at probably 3 or 4. Because the others, just were what they were, or just downright horrible. Their 2 best matches, though, for sure, was definitely WrestleMania 31. And also, their best match, no doubt about it, was the SummerSlam match with Last Man Standing later on this year. Which was supposed to happen between the 2 of them, but then both Cody Rhodes and Randy Orton got hurt, so they kind of had no choice. But we also know this was the last WrestleMania. Well, kind of was the last WrestleMania with no Vince McMahon. Vince McMahon did, of course, come back, and he was attending WrestleMania 39, and basically, threw his weight around and took full control over the Raw after Mania. Well, not much that sucked, but yeah, that was WrestleMania 38. Like I said, there was some stories they could have touched on more. Some they gave a little too much time to, or some they kind of rushed through. Like I said, I don't know. This was an okay documentary. It did kind of disappoint me a little bit, though. And I also felt it was just a little bit too long. But we've done it. It was a quality review, I thought. And we will be back again, for now, one last time, with the last of this 24 series. We'll get to the latest one, which was released at SummerSlam last year on Damian Priest. That will be, of course, next, and that will be the last of the series for now. Again, for the most part, I do enjoy these 24 specials. I do hope they do continue to do more of these, because they're definitely very well done, and really like help you get to know fans more and become even bigger fans of theirs. So I'm hoping they continue these, but I look forward to wrapping up the series next time with the Damian Priest 24 review. So what are you guys' thoughts on this WrestleMania 38 24 review? Did you guys think as well it was a little too long? Do you think that they probably should have cut the Rick Boogs stuff after the injury, or other stuff they may have touched on a little too much? Leave your guys' thoughts down in the comments section below. Slap a like on the video and subscribe for more content on my channel. Follow me on Twitter as well at the Club of the Man 93. You may also follow me on TikTok and on Instagram at the Club of the Man 1993. And until then, guys, I'm checking out. I'll catch you all later, and do not forget, in order to be superior to the man, you've got to be the man. And for I am the man himself. And that is not just an opinion, my friends. That is a fact of life. Yeah!